Hello and welcome one and all to the August Esports Leadership Series presented by the Esports Awards. Now, first things first, let me introduce myself real quick. I'm Soe Gschwind and have been working in esports for about 13 years now as a host, commentator, interviewer, caster, you name it, across the globe for every imaginable title. And today I have the utmost pleasure of being your host, which means I get to introduce and speak to a wide array of industry experts who will be joining us for today's webinar curated by the Esports Awards team. Now, our esteemed guests will be introduced shortly, but before we begin, I'd love to invite Michael Ashford, CEO of the Esports Awards, to kick off our proceedings.
Thank you, Zoe. Brilliant to have you back today. And thank you to all at home joining and watching. I'm very happy to welcome you back to another event in our Esports Leadership Series presented by the Esports Awards. Today is an incredibly exciting event for us. The team here at the Esports Awards are not just advocates for today's topic, but very much evidence of it. Around 10 years ago, for example, I was working outside of esports and gaming, but regularly competing in tournaments and following the scene alongside my career. At that stage, living in the UK, I didn't see a pathway into esports. Unfortunately, fast forwarding 10 years, both myself and the team have been able to find their way into esports and hopefully add a little bit of value along the way. Today's session will very much focus on the journey that individuals have taken to date and how we can all enable others to make their mark in esports and gaming. And with this in mind, we are also excited to announce our commitment to recognizing grassroots, amateur, and academic esports. We've been working incredibly hard over the past couple of years on this, and the first step is announcing the launch of our collegiate panel for the Esports Awards. The collegiate panel will be focused on helping us to ensure that we do justice to those competing at a collegiate level. Some of the panelists that will be joining the panel are joining us this evening as well. So a big welcome and thank you to Mark Garvey from Twitch, Chris Postell from Esports Foundry, Jake Zinn of Esports Supply, and also Alex Gonzales from Respawn Products. With those joining us, we have some very special announcements tomorrow night on how we will be recognising the collegiate scene in 2021 and onwards. As well as that, you will also be able to see the inductees of the Lifetime Achievement Class of 2021 being revealed, those that have made the industry possible in the first place. You can tune in to all of that action over at twitch.tv/esports awards, where it will all be unfolding and the timings will be in the bio as well. Back to tonight's event and adding to affairs will be the further three incredible people that have very much made their mark in esports, with Victoria Horsley from Riot Games, Paige Bonomi from Sportfive, and Halina Malik of eFuse joining this incredible event. Tonight should give a real insight on pathways into esports. Our speakers span the full breadth of the industry, so you can expect a well-rounded discussion focusing on the biggest questions in the collegiate scene, as well as how you might find your ideal path into esports and gaming. Away from this, I also do want to give a quick reminder that we're hosting a networking session straight after the event. These networking sessions provide an opportunity to connect with other industry professionals in an informal setting with large-scale discussion as well as smaller breakout rooms. I myself will certainly be there and I hope to meet as many of you as possible. The link is in the bio, so head over once we finish up. On that note, thank you again for tuning in. And without further ado, I am happy to hand back to the wonderful Soe Gschwind to commence proceedings.
Thank you so much, Mike. Well, yeah, as you said, tonight's theme will be a topical discussion focused on answering the biggest questions in and around collegiate esports. Now, the panel will be split up into two 30-minute discussions with a short intermission in between. And at any point, if you have any questions, please write them into the comments and we will try our best to answer them, of course. And if you could keep the questions, kind of related to the topic at hand, that will be much appreciated. Now, we expect the webinar to be about 1 hour and 20 minutes long. And after that, as Mike said, you can join us all for some breakout rooms for networking with the speakers, as well as other industry professionals. Now, that will happen at around 9:20 p.m. BST, which is 4:20 p.m. ET, and 1:20 p.m. PT. There we go. I got it right. Lots of time conversion, but we want to make sure that everyone's involved and ready for it. Now, the networking session is open to everyone. And honestly, you will be remiss not to join, as it's just such a fantastic opportunity to get insight and make connections with the esports space. So I highly encourage you to come and hang out with us right after the webinar is over. The link for that will, of course, be posted in the comments as well at the very end of our discussions. Now, with all the housekeeping done, let's get our first set of panelists on, starting with Mark Garvey, Director of Student and Education Program at Twitch. Hey, Mark, thank you so much for joining us. Why don't you quickly introduce yourself and what you do to our audience?
Absolutely. So my name is Mark Kendaya, but I've been going by Garvey for over 23 years in this industry. Really like the name. So I focus on scholastic esports, working with universities and high schools all over the world to create opportunities for students, not only with the path to pro, which I'm sure others will talk about, but we really want to flesh the whole industry out and try to find young professionals that want to help us identify some of the known unknowns and help us solve some of the unknown unknowns. So that's really what the program is about. We really focus on the scholastic side of esports, the competitive side. The students know better than I do how they want to compete, where they want to compete, what they want to do. So I just want to make sure that the universities and the high schools really understand what this space is and the breadth and scope of the opportunities that's available in many, many different ways. So that's really what I focus on.
Well, that's brilliant. I can't wait to pick your brain about our topic today, as I couldn't think of a better fit, really. Now, next up, we do have a Riot Games' very own Victoria Horsley working in global competitive operations on VALORANT. She will be joining us as well. How's it going, Victoria? Please introduce yourself and your job to our viewers.
Hi, I'm good. Yeah, that was a perfect introduction. Thank you so much. I am the match operations lead on the competitive operations side for the global VALORANT esports team. So it's a ton of fun. Basically, I'm accountable for competitive integrity for VCT events and supporting 7+ regions with all of their regional events, and essentially making sure that all of our major global events go smoothly, which we have Masters 3 in Berlin coming up really soon. So really excited for that, and just making sure that the competitive operations side for that comes out. And yeah, super excited.
So are we. It's so great to have you with us today for this discussion. Now, the marketing manager of Respawn Products, namely Alex Gonzales, will be with us as well. Hello, Alex. Great to have you with us. Please talk a bit about yourself and your job.
Hey, thanks. Yeah, so like you said, marketing manager at Respawn, handle anything on social, brand, partnerships, all that stuff. And then also an adjunct at Shenandoah University and some course development at other universities for their esports programs.
Well, that sounds brilliant. And to round out our first panel group, we got Christian Bishop, sorry about that, Chief Revenue Officer from Method, joining us as well. Thank you so much for hopping on a call with us, Christian. Please tell us a bit about yourself before we dive into our discussion.
Hey, Zoe. Hi, everybody. It's my pleasure. Christian Bishop. I'm Chief Revenue Officer for Method. We're an esports team focused on MMOs and RPGs. And at night, I'm the founder of esports.gg, a media company in the space. So I focus heavily on partnerships and driving revenue, Zoe. That's my thing.
Well, and I couldn't be happier with our first group here. It's absolutely brilliant to have all of you here. And I cannot wait to, probe your brains as we dive into our topic. Pathways into esports. Now, let's get straight to it and talk about the collegiate esports and the role it plays in making a career in our entire industry. This is an open discussion, so of course feel free, to take the lead or follow up, and I will just kind of guide us all through this very big topic, which I'm throwing into the room here. Maybe let's start with you here, Garvey. You as a director of student and education programs at Twitch, do you think that collegiate is the route to take?
With the path to pro, again, I think I mentioned it in the introduction. I really don't focus too much. I support every collegiate and high school tournament organizer in the world, but I myself and the program doesn't focus on the path to pro. We want to, again, flesh out, we want to create opportunity for a lot of people, not just a very small percentage. So our entire Twitch student program is designed to do several things. One is to help an esports program show value to the educational institution. And two is to, again, give awareness into these valuable and transferable emerging new and digital media skills. And that's a lot of what we focus on. Is we don't want to put any students in a box. We want this education to be applicable to this industry, again, to solve some of the known unknowns and identify some of the unknown unknowns in this industry. But we really, really focus on making sure that these skills are valuable and transferable and allow students to do anything they want, anywhere they want in the world, in a way that's appropriate and relevant for the 21st century, in particular, in relation to digital media and new media. So this is my big push. Create more opportunity for more young people in more places.
Well, brilliant. Well, yeah, I mean, certainly the collegiate route is one of such opportunities one can open up. Alex, I know that are you a professor at a university, or were you a professor at a university? What was the deal there?
It's at Shenandoah University in their esports program. And I don't say professor because I recently read that you're not allowed to say that unless you have certain qualifications. So I just say adjunct.
A good thing I didn't read it, so I can say
Doc.
whatever I want.
I know where that came from, Doc.
Yeah, I saw Doc tweet that, so I said I shouldn't say professor anymore. I should update that. But yeah, I taught my first semester earlier this year, and then we have class starting again on Monday. So it's good to see esports programs popping up, and not just focusing, like Mark said, only on the professional side and competing, but also on the education side and all the different jobs that come from the gaming space.
Also, what kind of stuff are you educating the students on then? Like what would a class like that look like? Hello.
Yeah, so upcoming now we have contemporary issues in esports. So talking about everything that's kind of going on, and in esports that changes by the day or by the week pretty quickly. And then they have intro to esports and a few other classes that I haven't taught, but I think the whole program is about 10 different courses.
Right on. Victoria, I mean, you used to be a player yourself. What was your path like? I mean, I know that back in the days, and you're also an OG, right? So there wasn't such a thing as collegiate esports. That was being an esports player was very niche. What are your thoughts on collegiate, and what was your route you took?
I mean, I spent 4 years in collegiate, so obviously I love it. I had a very different path. I would have loved if there was collegiate esports back when I was an undergrad, but fortunately there wasn't. But I started in 2010 doing Halo 3 events, volunteering with game battles. So that was a lot of fun, but that's how I got my start. I did that for several years. And then I loved it so much that I was drawn to the Rainbow Six community really, really strongly. And so I became a player, got really motivated to compete, found out I wasn't too bad at it. Qualified for LAN at DreamHack, did some online tournaments, experienced that whole side of things. And then I took a step back and I was like, I want to coach this. And I became a coach and a team manager, had a really good PUBG team. And I also did Rainbow Six Siege, Ring of Elysium, and a couple other games. But yeah, had a really good PUBG team. I still love the PUBG scene. And I just focused in on that. And I really gained, through all those years, I gained that experience of being the TO, the player, and the coach, which was really, really interesting. And that was not the most common way to get into esports, so to speak, but super thankful for it. And it's been an adventure, and it got me to where I am now, because the last 4 years I spent that in collegiate, running NA leagues, and just running everything from broadcast. I remember last year there was one time where I was running 3 championships at the same time. I was getting them into the lobbies. I was cutting different scenes to post to Twitter. I was updating the graphics. I was helping the broadcast team. It was a lot of fun. But I've been around a little bit of everything in esports. And so not the most common path, like I said, but it's been a ton of fun, and it got me to where I am today.
Yeah, so you really just worked every avenue possible, and then some. That's a classic esports. It's like, oh, can you do actually everything? Yeah, well, I guess you're hired in that case. Now, Christian, we haven't heard from you. I know you've been a commissioner for the WSOE previously, so that's like multi-genre, multi-platform, also a bit of everything. How involved if at all, involved was collegiate esports in that?
Yeah, collegiate's always played a part for us. When I was running the league, we definitely thought through the process of how could we support that scene, working with great people like Garvey and the team at Twitch and all of the colleges and universities. We had opportunities for teams to compete through qualifiers and actually have a chance to compete with some of the best in the world. We were always proud, really proud of doing great work like that, to be able to bring people out to Vegas, play in the middle of the strip for some awesome money and play to win. So keeping the competition open, I think, for people to participate was always really important to us. And we had an awesome internship program for people on the professional side who wanted opportunities, people that grinded like Victoria, who could do just everything. So I love that. I think that's peak esports, and always looking for great, passionate, hardworking people.
I think this is really important that we're bringing up how all of us wear multiple hats all the time. And that's why I think scholastic esports and what's going on in high schools and universities around the world is really important, because these classes, again, Alex talked about 10 classes, right? From esports 101 classes that go through the history. Where do we come from? Where are we now? Where can we go? I think it's just really important that students get this wide breadth of knowledge that only somebody like Alex can maybe provide at Shenandoah, which is one of my favorite universities to work with. So these programs are really great. And again, it's going to be, I think it's win-win-win situations. The university is going to be more appropriate and relevant. Our industry is going to grow. It's going to become sustainable. It's going to become more professional. And the students have a roadmap and to apply themselves with a great foundation of knowledge to be able to do what Victoria has done, wearing multiple hats, probably daily, to take one hat off, putting one hat on, taking one hat off, putting one hat on. This is esports. And that's why I love these kind of university programs. Really gives a broad insight into the industry and how you could apply yourself.
I mean, it's as much as it's great, to be a jack of all trades and to wear those multiple hats. I think from the outside looking in, that makes it really difficult for people to understand, like, what paths are there? Like, do I have to be able to do everything, or like, is this expected of me? Like, where do I even start? So let's back it up a little bit. Victoria, you already told us like your path, which was, definitely not like the most common path to take. Alex, like, how did you get involved? What was happening before you started giving lectures?
Yeah, I mean, I think Victoria's path is pretty similar for mine and a lot of people in the space. I started playing on game battles like anyone that plays console games did. And then I was like, hey, I'm pretty good at this. And then after a while, I noticed I'm not good enough, though. So ended up, running my own team. From there, I was like, well, this is great, but I'm a 16-year-old and I can't afford to run my own team. So I ended up working for a team. And, like you said, wearing all hats within the team, because sometimes you have to open up Photoshop and design the graphics yourself because the designer's not answering his messages. And, but I think, like you said, from right now, all of the industry is trying to kind of shift away from that, wearing all the hats, and really saying, hey, this is your defined job now that the industry is maturing. But it's good to have that experience in your back pocket and for everyone to know, hey, if you need to open up Photoshop to make a small change, maybe you can. If you need to run a broadcast, you should know the ins and outs of OBS, like just small things like that you don't have to be an expert, but if you know a little bit about it, you're very useful to a lot of companies trying to get into the space.
Absolutely. I mean, that goes to like normal jobs, as if our job is normal, but you know what I mean, right? Like if you're studying media design, you need to have a basic understanding of how to code, how to program. In order to build websites, you need to know how they're being built in the back end. Otherwise, you're just not providing what your programmer needs in the end. And I guess it's the same in our industry. Like if you have a better understanding of a little bit of everything, you definitely gonna, that you're gonna be a great asset. Garvey, how did you get started?
My path was actually maybe a little similar, but I got started at the end of 1993, and I was a competitive player myself, but there was no competitive real video game. So I was playing a game called Magic the Gathering. So that's how I got started, with a card game. And then I really enjoyed it. And 1996, Christian will probably relate to this, but 1996, the first ever MMORPG came out, Ultima Online. And that just pulled me in. And from 1996 on, I just never looked backwards. So I actually came from the gaming space, worked in the gaming space, and then moved into esports as it started growing. So I just happened to I think maybe have a passion for something that was coming down the pipeline, which was gaming and esports. But going back a step about this wearing multiple hats, I worked for UPS for 10 years. And to be a manager at UPS, you actually have to go through every single position. You have to start as a union driver. You have to do part-time work loading the trucks. You have to be a line manager. Then you have to be a center manager. You have to go through every single position that's available in UPS before they will accept you as management, because they want you to walk a mile in somebody else's shoes and have an understanding and empathy for what they're going, and an understanding of the processes and structure behind each job, so we can make things more efficient. So this isn't like that you need to wear multiple hats every single day. As Alex has said, we're moving away from that model. I'm of the mind that we need subject matter experts, and then anything that's missing around those subject matter experts, he or she will have a foundation of what they don't know to identify people to hire or work with that complements their weakness with that person's strength. So I just wanted to throw it out there. Don't be scared. It's not like you have to know how to do a million things. It's just a foundation, right? Just a general understanding of what other people do, so you can understand how it fits into the overall picture and how you might be able to create synergies as well.
Yeah, and I mean, at the end of the day, right, like there's nothing you can't learn. Like if you're coming with good work ethics, if you're coming with a lot of passion, like that's already a great basis to get started. And yeah, you might not start where you want to be at the end, but that goes for all of us. I don't think anyone has, right? Christian, I don't think we got your path to pro, your career, if you will. And maybe walk us through where you started.
Did it for free and boarding school. Was
Nice.
running a gaming club. Ended up doing IT work, Cat 5 cabling, so we could play Counter-Strike on like 1.6 and have our own LANs. Ran guilds like World of Warcraft and eFuse, corps and things throughout high school, and then into college working at a GameStop. Went into the corporate America side of things, was miserable. I was like, look, this isn't where I belong, because everyone told me go be productive, right? That whole story, I think we all can relate to a bit. Did some stuff in the Hollywood side of things and entertainment, and then came back all in with video games and esports, and launched an arena supporting the collegiate space in Los Angeles. So we were supporting a ton of gamers every month, over 10,000, and one step led to another, and went to Vegas for the WSOE, and then came over to Method. So it's been a bit of a journey for me.
Absolutely. Well, we're glad you took the journey, and now we have you with us, right? So that's what matters in the end. Victoria, when you first started, which advice do you think would have been really valuable for you? What do you wish someone would have told you about the path ahead of you?
Two things. One of them being no experience is too small. I think a lot of us run into that issue that if you volunteered, it didn't really matter, or that it didn't count. I was told the first 5 years of my esports experience didn't count because I wasn't paid for it. And that's just not true. I learned so much, and I'm so proud of what I've learned. And I volunteered voluntarily. I volunteered just to get the experience. And there's kind of that balancing act, right? Of don't let yourself be taken advantage of. Don't let people not pay you for good work. But if you're there just because you're passionate and you're the one offering, hey, can I do this just to get some experience and see what's going on? I think that that's extremely valuable. And that's how I started, and just making sure that everybody knows how valuable that is. And then the second one is just networking. Never burn a bridge. You never know when some sort of relationship is going to help you down the road. I know I go by the motto that relationships should be transformational, not transactional. It should never be about what can I get out of this. It should be about developing a genuine connection. And then later on down the road, they might say, hey, I have an opening and I need somebody that's, they're like-minded or X, Y, or Z. And then they have you at the top of mind because you formed a genuine connection with them, and you didn't burn that bridge, and you networked appropriately because you just want to help. You want to help the space. You want to help the community. You want to help just the esports industry in general. And so I think that those are two key things. I know my manager now, I worked with him in collegiate because he ran, VALORANT when VALORANT was first popping off, and I was in collegiate. So I was like, hey, I want to run some of these tournaments. And I kept in contact with him, and, now he's my manager at Riot, and he's an amazing person. And we, run the competitive operations side. So it's amazing to see where we can all go. And I mean, even everybody else on this panel at one point in time, I've worked with or done something with. And so that networking and those different relationships are so important. And so those two things, the networking and just making sure that you don't count any of your experience, don't let anybody tell you that it doesn't count. Those are just two key things I wish I had known in the beginning, because I know them now. But if I had known that from the get-go, then I think that would have made me a lot more confident moving forward.
That's honestly such good advice. Honestly, if I were to write an esports book, like I would just quote everything you said and put that as my forward, because you can't understate just how important all of that is. Not to burn those bridges. Like, even if it's the IT guy or the person holding the camera, or like literally anyone, like it can come back to haunt you if you're coming in with arrogance, or you just, even if you have a bad day, like just don't let it out on other people. Like you never know. So that's big value right there. Alex, when you got started, did you have anyone to give you advice, or did you just do it however you thought is right, and that was that?
Yeah, no, I think Victoria pretty much hit nail on the head there. And I was going to say, like, when I first met Victoria, she was at one spot, and then when we were on a esports awards panel last year, she was at somewhere else, and now she's at Riot. So, always keep in touch with everyone. Always, like you said, give everyone time of day. And even if, someone emails and says, hey, I want to do something with you, and it's not the right opportunity now, it doesn't hurt, give them those 5, 10, 15 minutes and chat about, just meeting each other and saying, that might not work now, but you never know 6 months down the road what might work out. To your question, I don't know. The space was still really small back then, and it's still super small now. If there's someone you're looking for advice for, literally shoot them a Twitter message, and more often than not, they're probably going to answer you. They might not answer you right away, but just shoot them a message and find out what you're trying to get answered. And don't ask you a question, just ask them the question, because then they're more likely to answer.
Absolutely. Yeah, I usually don't reply to a hey.
Yeah.
But if you actually have a question, I'm very likely to reply. Garvey, you just pointed at yourself. What sage advice do you have for the masses?
I was just going to say, as Victoria was talking, I don't know if it's my quote or not. I don't know where it came from, but I always say your network is your net worth, and your reputation is the grease that allows you to work with people. So it's not only networking, it's just like Victoria said, right? Pay attention to people. It doesn't matter if it's a waiter, it doesn't matter if it's a photographer, right? Show love to people, show respect to people, show love to their craft, right? Because you never know where they're going to be. And people can see this, and that's your reputation. And if you have a good reputation and you have a good network, things become a bit easier, I would say. We like to work with good people in this industry. I hate to say that there's gatekeepers in this industry, but I would hazard a guess to say that everybody in this panel has gatekeeped at some point or another to keep bad actors out. Some a little bit more than others. I'm quite aggressive with bad actors myself. But yeah, just be a good person, be kind to people, meet people. There's another thing that I like to advocate for, which is called targeted networking, where if you're going to an event, do a little bit of research on who's going to be there and identify 5 people that you might want to have an elevator pitch to. Hi, how are you? This is what I'm about. And then go and make sure that you casually make your way to those 5. You can meet anybody you want, but I like targeted. I like finding 5 people, doing a little LinkedIn search, getting to know them a little bit, and crafting an introduction that's appealing to them. And an introduction should always enable people to ask questions. It shouldn't be 100% factual, just about you, what you've done, blah, 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 because it's really hard to share vision or with people when it's one person saying, this is my vision. But if you talk about your vision in a way that enables people to ask questions about the business, the vision, then slowly but surely through the conversation, you come together and you could work together towards a shared vision. So it's really important when you think about networking, just have a couple things in your mind. Be kind, do your research, know what you're about, and enable people to be part of a conversation, not just one direction.
Yeah, monologue is never a good way to approach anyone, I dare say. So as you and Alex both said, like it's really important to ask questions, make it an actual conversation, and so both parties are interested in what the other one has to say. Now, Christian, When you got started, did you have any kind of mentorship or anything, or was it all figured out on your own?
Yeah, really good question. Esports created this entrepreneurial landscape for me that allowed me to just hustle and bustle, right? And everything what Garvey is chatting about, getting out there, doing the research, something that I did a lot of was just getting involved and showing up to events and just not knowing what you're gonna, how it's gonna go, but just going. And I got to meet great people like him and others, whether or not it's Sundance or Adam Apicella, Mike Zepso, just great people, Justin Delario, like Garvey mentioned earlier, that over time, they're just very generous with their time and feedback. And I've always appreciated that in the space, and learned early on how important it is, especially as a young person, to just be humble, because you definitely don't know everything, and our industry changes so quickly. That's like one of the things that creates so much opportunity in the space is every year it's a different landscape, it's a different game, different moments. And that's an opportunity to kind of innovate and learn. So having great mentors is super important. And I've always tried to kind of work with great people like that.
Yeah, and honestly, we have a lot of them. I had the pleasure of working with so many people you just mentioned and above that. And everyone, as you said, was very generous with their time. Like, because in the end, all of our goals is to grow the industry. And that works through collegiate, that works through so many different avenues. And if we can help grow it, then we make it a sustainable place for us to work and for many generations to come, which I believe is just overall the end goal, right? So that's why gatekeeping is actually just pointless, because you're just making it a limited little niche, and that's not what we're about. We want to share the passion, we want to share the joy of video games and of esports. Now, if someone were to want to break into the industry like right now, what path would you suggest? I mean, obviously that depends heavily on what they want to do, but like, what avenues are there?
Is that back to me?
Anyone who wants to take it, honestly.
I always tell people it starts with what you want to do and your passion, I think, first. And then you could be practical around what's accessible to you, whether or not it's locally, right? Getting involved local level, contributing your time in some way, or finding a way to make an impression, right? Like I think we see what 100 Thieves has done with their intern program. That's really fun. And like the awesome content people, are making for their shot, shooting it. So I think it's, get out there, right? But if you can find something you're passionate about, or someone you really respect, or a brand or an organization, and you could find a way to get involved and develop specific skill sets to be able to contribute and add value, you should go for it.
Yeah.
So
oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was just gonna echo that a little bit. It's just keep in mind that imposter syndrome is really, really big in our community, and don't let it stop you from doing what you want to do. Don't let it stop you from applying to things. I know that titles can be a big deal, but what we were saying earlier, if you're, maybe a camera person or you're a social media person, everybody is very integral to everything that we do in esports. So that applies to you too. No matter what you're doing, if you're contributing towards something, you're getting experience, you're getting that knowledge, and you're getting those network connections. So no matter what, make sure that you see value in what you do, and you see value in yourself, and that you just really push the envelope, and you figure out what you want to do, maybe find people in the similar path, and just go for it. Because I know everyone here, we all have a lot of respect for people who are just going to go for it because it shows your passion. You don't have to have all of the knowledge, but the passion's there. So just go for it, and don't let anybody tell you not to.
Yeah, I think that's a really big point here. Like, no job is too small. Honestly, it isn't. So don't miss them out on your CV. Like if you're thinking about what you've done, like Victoria, when you said like you weren't sure that, or people told you that your previous experience where you worked for free, that didn't count. It does count, and it will count on your CV as well. People want to read about it. They want to know that you did all that voluntary work. They want to know whether you carried cables or like wrote an entire show rundown. Like, it doesn't matter. No job is too small. Everything is of value, and you never know. There's a lot of people who can relate to the things you've done, which will get you an in, right? Alex, how do people best approach someone? Like, if they want to apply for a job, like, what do you think companies are the most open to if someone has no experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, obviously before COVID, there was a whole bunch of events and the MOG circuits and everything going to your local area. So there's events like that are always looking for on-the-floor volunteers, whether you're a referee or whatever you have to do. those are great opportunities to get involved. Now with not as many live events going on, that any way you can find online to get involved. If you're a designer, just start pumping out graphics, start practicing, and start posting them out there. I know, for example, like the Gamepedia guys, there's multiple people that were editing the COD Gamepedia that now are social managers for a lot of the professional teams in the league. So just find a way to get involved. Like Victoria said, no matter what it is or at what level, just don't think about it. If there's an opportunity that you can do because they're looking for volunteers, do it and let that be your first step.
I have two quick thoughts on it myself. I would say, find something that you want to be involved in and then work backwards. Where do you want to be in 3 years, right? With what you want to apply yourself to. From that 3-year goal where you want to be, you could start working backwards and start figuring out, okay, these are the 3 components that make up my end goal. These are the components of those components. And you finish this thought process on what can you do tomorrow, right? So if you combine this idea of networking with this idea of being a subject matter expert with a roadmap into where you're going to go and a runway into how long it's going to take to get there, that's quite impressive, because in that introduction, when you're talking to somebody in networking, if they're interested, you could even break down a 30, 60, 90 plan for them, saying, oh, if I was to do something like this is what I would look to do in 30, 60, and 90 days. And it's really easy to talk about it because you've worked through the whole idea in your head with this working backwards process. I'm a big fan of working backwards. A second idea is, especially for students, is to keep a diary. Please keep a diary. Every single day, jot down a big win and a big loss as it pertains to what you're applying yourself to. This way, when you graduate, you can have a cover letter that exemplifies all the soft skills that are inherent in this business and have a portfolio that's actually appropriate and has qualitative and quantitative data behind it. So take notes, have a plan, think how you would really enjoy applying yourself. Learn as much as you can about it, and just give yourself a direction that you could bring people into. Again, it's about this is my vision, this is how I would apply it, and bringing people into that vision and working together to execute on a shared vision. So those are my two main points that I would think to say is work backwards and keep a diary.
I love that. I'd like to add on to it just to reiterate as well, is you can also create and get started. You don't actually need anyone to give you an opportunity. One thing is you just start creating, start building. I think that's one of the beauty of what we do, in gaming, and a lot of it's on the internet, is there's a ton of creators that need support. There's a ton of things that you can just do. You could be a creator yourself. So it's like, just go after it. Don't just sit idle, like you can actually just get started. That's what I did. I started my own company initially because
social entrepreneurship.
Yeah, just get after it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, idling around and waiting for opportunities is not going to get you opportunities. Like, you need to be ready. You need to make your own opportunities. And Garvey, as you just said, if you take an L, if you learn something from that loss, then it's a win. That's really what it is. Like, you can always take something away from every failure in your career path. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. Don't get disheartened. Now, that is all we have time for with our first group. So a huge thank you, Mark Garvey, Victoria Horsley, Alex Gonzales, and Christian Bishop, for all the insight they have shared with us today. It was great stuff. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. See you, everybody.
Yeah, it's been an absolute blast. Thank you. We will be back with our next panel session in just 2 minutes, but don't go too far. Actually, don't go anywhere, as we got an exciting teaser for the Esports Awards main show in Arlington, Texas for you. The event will be happening on Saturday, the 20th of November, and it's going to be a very extravagant night that you don't want to miss. So if you want to attend the awards, drop the Esports Awards team an email or join the networking session right after this entire discussion to meet them in person and have a chat about it. So without any further ado, let's take a look at what's in store. Welcome back, everyone. It's time for round 2 of our Pathways into Esports Roundtable. And of course, can't do that by myself. So we got our second group of panelists waiting to join in on our discussion. First up, let me introduce to you Jake Zinn. He is the co-founder and VP of Business Development from Esports Supply. Jake, it's great to have you with us today. Why don't you introduce yourself and what you do in the greater sphere of esports?
No, I appreciate it. Thank you very much for having me. I'm Jake Zinn, co-founder and vice president of business development here at Esports Supply. We plan, build, and support collegiate esports spaces across the country. Really excited to be here and excited to get engaged in kind of my story of how we ended up at esports and all the great things we have going on here at Esports Supply.
Well, we're thrilled to have you. Also, absolutely love that Pokemon poster in the back there, just saying. Our next guest is Halina Malik, Director of Content at eFuse. Halina, it's a pleasure to have you on today. First things first, of course, please tell us who you are and what you do.
No, thank you so much for having me. So I'm Halina Malik. I'm the Director of Content at eFuse. We focus on written and video content across all game titles in professional, collegiate, and scholastic levels. But formerly, I was a competitive Call of Duty player and recently finished up like 3.5 years at the Cleveland Cavaliers in the 2K League.
Well, that's amazing. I can't wait to pick your brain. Next up, we got Paige Bonomi, Director of New Business Development at Sportfive, joining us. Thank you so much for dropping by today, Paige. Please introduce yourself and your work real quick.
Thanks, Paige Bonomi, development for esports at our global space out of Hamburg. The core of our board side, but about 5 years old globally. So there's leagues, there's you name it, and the commercialization.
All right, so I had a little trouble understanding the mic there. Maybe that's just me, or maybe it isn't, but I'm sure we can get that fixed. Meanwhile, I'm going to bring in our last guest, but thank you so much, Paige. I hope to hear more from you in just a second. Last but certainly not least, we do have Chris Postell, who works in business development at Esports Foundry, who will also be with us today. Chris, thank you so much for joining us. And just like everyone, I would love to hear a little bit about yourself and the work you do.
No problem. Thank you so much for having me here. And quite frankly, I'm honored to be among such a strong crowd of other subject matter experts, a lot of friends in this room. So once again, thank you. I work in business development for Esports Foundry. We do a number of things, but our mainstay is apparel as well as building and running your own gaming centers. So we do a lot, but I'll just keep it at that and turn the mic over to everybody else.
Well, you do a lot, so we're going to talk a lot about all the things all of you are doing. And I want to talk about making the move to a career in esports first with you guys. Now, whether you're coming from, a different industry altogether, or maybe have no prior work experience whatsoever, what do you think are the benefits of the esports world and working in it? And what do you think it takes, or what is needed to make it in this industry? Halina, maybe let's start with you, as you've had quite a route yourself.
Definitely. I actually, started playing competitively, so I didn't necessarily make the switch from something else to esports. But
it's a little robot-y for me.
Lots of robots joining us today, which I love.
That is all good. But the benefits of being in esports is you are at the ground floor of something really special. You get to build something and work on projects that you definitely, wouldn't have been able to work on if it wasn't for this awesome industry. So it's definitely something really unique and special.
Chris, how do you feel people can make the switch? Or what is the benefit to making the switch into esports?
Yeah, quite frankly, esports is a really authentic place to be in right now. And I use that adjective intentionally as Emmett, the CEO of Twitch, uses it intentionally. Esports is a younger, it's a different world from any other space, including within general gaming. I would say first and foremost that getting into esports itself takes more than just passion for gaming at this point. I think we've all can agree we've matured past the part of the industry where just passion gets you in. This is a professional, mature industry, where you need to have the components on the BD side or on the marketing side or on the content side, those talents that will get you there and get you into success. Hopefully that answers your question.
It does. Jake, as someone who works with collegiate esports and probably also a lot of people who are not familiar with the space and maybe don't understand like why they should even give it a go, what is the benefit to esports in the industry from the perspective of someone who wants to work in there?
I think from a perspective of people that want to work in the industry, it's greenfield, right? It's kind of some of the earlier stuff on the panel, the opportunity to create something from scratch and be able to make an impact in ways that are meeting current needs, right? It's always evolving, it's always growing, especially at the collegiate level. There is a massive lag between number of the members of the community and members of administration, right? I think there's still a lot to be done in terms of getting the administration on board and building authentic spaces and places. And to us, it's all second nature. We're all gamers, but be able to take this love and this passion for something and then communicate that in a way to somebody who's has a checkbook or has a need or has something that'll actually be able to make an impact. Make an impact has been huge, but really just the ability to come in completely greenfield. It's kind of been an entrepreneurial dream of mine to be able to make an impact and work with some of the biggest brands. And I say all the time, I don't know if we'd be able to do what we've been able to do in any other industry besides esports.
Yeah, no, I honestly don't think we would. It's a very creative and open space, and it's also still very young in the greater scheme of things, right? So there is a lot of opportunities to build things which might not work in other industries. Now let's check in with Paige again to see if she's back. If so, can you once again tell us what you do?
Can you now?
Still very robot-esque, which I like. It's a choice. We can try sign language, but I don't speak it, so that's unfortunate. So maybe we can't try it. We're just gonna make sure that you might get that fixed. We're just gonna move on, but you can nod in agreement to all the clever things everyone else is saying. How about that? Over the years, we've certainly seen a lot of growth of non-endemic brands as well in esports space. Can any of you actually speak to how this has helped esports and the career space in general?
Yeah, I can take this one if that's okay with everybody else here. Non-endemic brands is a little bit of my specialty. I like to think on two fronts. Non-endemic brand interest in esports has catalyzed a large amount of growth within the industry. And when we think about non-endemic brands, we think about Procter & Gamble, or we think of Geico, or we think of these big sponsors. And yes, that's part of the conversation, especially in the professional team side. But I also think of non-endemic brands on the supply side, on the infrastructure side, coming in, whether it's Herman Miller getting involved in esports in offering furniture and chairs and getting involved in that way, or IP companies and telecom coming in and getting involved. Those are authentic ways, and they're very needed, and they're so important. And quite frankly, we can't expand the industry without them doing so. They are A, part of our lifeblood, and B, they are our friends, and we need to treat them as such. And then I'll add just one little extra touch on it. And there's a very common intersection with non-endemics beyond the sponsorship side that I think many people miss, and that is talent. Esports people in our community are talented, they're driven, especially from the collegiate side. I've got two wonderful people in this space that are both heavily invested in that and can vouch for that statement. And these people need talent, and they need that level of skill for their future workforce. Those conversations are so authentic, and they're so great to have, and they're so, quite frankly, easy to have when you funnel the direction towards how can I help you with your future workforces. Quite frankly, there's a lot of value that's just untouched that we are leaving on the table. But I think that will be coming into the picture of the overall ecosystem very quickly over the next couple of years.
Jake, have you noticed a shift from like back in the days where everything was pretty endemic to now where we see a lot of different logos on each and every broadcast and each and every product? how many more non-endemic brands are approaching you guys these days?
I mean, a lot. I think, you've got so many different pathways, especially in collegiate, right? So there's always an interest anytime you've got a community of people that are gathered around some common thing, right? So you see sponsorship everywhere. I think really the bigger thing, just kind of echo Chris's point, is like with each new non-endemic brand putting money into the space, that represents jobs, that represents an economy, that represents new opportunities that never existed before for those who are wanting to break into it. So I'm not a purist in the sense of like I want them out. I think the more non-endemic brands, the bigger the pie, the more opportunity we can generate and create for the masses is ultimately the pathway that things need to go. And I'm really excited to continue to see that happening.
Yeah, same here. I know a lot of people are on the gatekeeping side. They're like, oh no, new things. We don't like that. But overall, it does create new spaces and new opportunities for a lot of people. So why not embrace that? Halina, you're actually working, with people who might not be super familiar with esports or coming from a sports background rather. How do you make it digestible for them? How do you get them on the hook?
Definitely, you have to draw those parallels, and it's fortunate enough that esports and gaming, does have a lot of parallels to sports. Although it's and I would argue that it is completely separate. There are those similar parallels where you can sort of explain things and dumb things down. But I loved Jake's point, and I'm also not a purist in terms of gatekeeping. I love all of these non-academic brands coming in, and it only opens more jobs. And I'm a fan of tangible examples, and I'll use like Excel Sports Management, their company, their agency as an example. They just opened their esports department where they're hiring, their esports experts. They need that person in the room that can speak the language. And so, you might not be at an esports team per se on the team side, but you could absolutely be at a non-endemic brand in their esports department. So lots of careers opening up on the non-endemic side also.
All right, let's do a 5-minute check-in with Paige. see what works.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, there we go.
Thank
Perfect.
you. Well, this was good timing because I have a lot to say on this one. Thank you for being patient. So Sportfive, similar to Excel, we're a sports marketing agency, right? So we work with traditional sports right holders all over the world, whether that's teams, leagues, athletes, etc. And that's the core of our business. It was built on, European football and American football and golf and Formula One and basketball and so on. And our global esports team, esports and gaming unit, is about 60 people. And a lot of those people all came from the traditional sports side. So it's really interesting because they're bringing all these perspectives, whether it's from traditional sports partnerships, sales and media rights, consulting, so on, all these perspectives from that industry. And I think on the non-endemic brand side of things, just to touch on what I think everybody said here too, is that the more opportunities, the better. They're familiar, obviously, with the traditional sports landscape already, but you're seeing, brands like AT&T, Verizon, and so on create dedicated esports teams as part of their sponsorship units, right? So I think that as terrible as the pandemic was for everyone, it definitely put a very large spotlight on this industry, which I think it's the attention that it deserves for sure.
Couldn't agree more. Chris, as a non-endemic, not you non-endemic, but for non-endemic brands or people who want to make a move into the industry, what are the big obstacles or pitfalls? Like, what do people need to be wary of when they want to work in esports?
From the non-endemic side, getting into esports, I'm gonna use that adjective again, authenticity is key. Understanding who it is you're trying to talk to and understanding that there's different groups. One of the most common descriptors I hear of people if I have an exploratory conversation, even if it's within an organization that understands esports front facing, maybe that person does not. I'm always asked about the esports. What are the esports? And even, the most bare basic questions. I had a conversation today actually with someone on the traditional sports side, and she had no idea, what the largest esports titles were in the collegiate ecosystem. She had no idea what Rocket League was, even though her son plays that game every day. And once she drew that alliteration, she understood. But it's, little basic things like that. Or it's understanding the breakdown, the nuance of, where the dollars and cents are in the overall valuation of the industry, and where, that group in which you're trying to target and enter actually sits on that side. Are we talking about, the pro team side? Are we talking on the amateur team side? Are we talking on the scholastic side? And understanding that, some of the numbers that we hear floated around in different areas on social or professional media, may not necessarily apply to that part of the market. And so it's really important just to be educated and be really true to understanding, okay, what are you trying to do? What are your goals? And then understanding where you're moving into is just the most important, bare bones basic, get your starting line right.
Yeah. I mean, it goes with everything, right? Like, it's not about knowing everything when you're joining a space. It's about knowing where to get the knowledge from. Like, that's what's the important part. If you find the right people to talk to guide you, and not coming with the arrogance and the assumption that you know it all, it's fine, it's just the same thing all over again. Like, it's not. So yeah, you need the right path for you, which fits your business or your personal goals as well. Now, as someone from the outside coming into it, I do want to know what the obstacles are which need to be overcome. Jake, what do you think is the biggest obstacle for anyone out there who tries to make it in esports?
I think themselves, to be honest with you. I think, no, I mean, dead serious, right? Like, I'm a dad of some gamers. I played games growing up. I didn't play collegiate esports. I've had a lot of experience in designing and building other technology-driven spaces. But it was just, I think most people just kind of, or Garvey's earlier point, won't take the time. Maybe they don't know how, so I'll give them the benefit of the doubt, but they won't take the time to say, here's where we want to be in 3 to 5 years. This is exactly what I'm going to do. And then trying to take that on. I think most people stop at the first couple signs of adversity. It was really hard to get Esports Supply off the ground, to find the right people, the right investors, the right hires, all these new things, and at the same time breaking into something that nobody ever heard of who I was or the company. But I think this relentless pursuit of what we laid out on the napkin 3-4 years ago, and just never giving up, I think is probably the main thing. So other than that, there's no huge silver bullet. You just have to get out of your own way, get out of your own head, and shoot your shots. I mean, that's the main thing. The more opportunities, the more activity you put on creating opportunity for yourself, not being afraid to, ask somebody for something or just try. I think it's the number one thing that people don't do. I think a lot of people will just say, hey, I shot this email to this person, they didn't respond. It's like, did you shoot them, 17? Because if not, then
yeah, no, you gotta grind, man. You gotta stick with it. Like, can't expect people to just get back to you and that was it. Like, that's not how any of us got started, really. Like, you gotta stick with it. Now, of course, the big question is that it might seem like it's just open to everyone, but obviously, if we're looking at like the diversity and equality in that space, there are still a lot of ways to grow. So, Halina, I know you've been very outspoken about women in the space in particular. How inclusive of a space do you feel it is right now, and how diverse?
It needs to get better. And that's almost with every industry. Women are paid less everywhere. Women are underrepresented. There's a lot of gatekeeping. And so just like any industry, there's still a lot of work to be done. I do think, what is great about esports is it is for everyone. And it is younger, which is great. Skews younger, I should say. But, and plug eFuse here for a little bit. I get to work on a lot of women's tournaments, a lot of co-ed tournaments, and content to help discover and create, content both on the written side and video side for people who might not have that platform or have had that opportunity before. But I think, as we progress, women's tournaments, co-ed tournaments, the prize pools right now are a lot heavier in a good way than they ever were 5 years ago. And I think that the sky's the limit here. There's still a lot of obstacles and a lot of hurdles that we have to climb. But I think we're all kind of ready for the challenge, and I do think that there's this sort of wave, of change that's happening right now, and a lot of great organizations, have popped up in recent years. Queen's Gaming Collective, the Game Hers. There's a lot of great, foundations and things that are happening behind the scenes that we just need to, give a little bit more support to. So, yeah, to answer your question, there's not a lot of diversity and inclusion. I would love to see a lot more of it, but it's definitely better than it was 5 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, this is also something like I understand you're watching a broadcast or whatever, and you're like, I want more diversity in the talent or whatnot. Like, yes, we all do, but that needs to start at the very beginning. That needs to start in the collegiate area, in the grassroots area. We need to be able to give equal opportunities to everyone from everywhere in order to get them to the point where they can actually join those higher up positions. Paige, what is a way to go about that?
That's a good question. Well, I mean, I think that it's been interesting over the past year or so too with I think the historics of game titles, right? Let's look at Counter-Strike or Dota or League of Legends, right? These games have been around for years and years and years. And historically it's been male dominated, which makes sense. The whole industry is. I think like using Valorant as an example, Riot Games as an example, like they're creating an ecosystem that didn't exist before. And I think that there's opportunity to use that as a stepping stone to bring more females, women into that ecosystem from the get-go versus climbing an uphill battle and trying to find your way into, a community that already exists. So first of all, I think that has been really interesting to see, whether it's like women's Valorant, dedicated Valorant teams or whatever it may be. But I think that on the business side of it, a lot of esports and gaming professionals nowadays are coming from, like I said earlier, either traditional sports, entertainment, media, and a lot of them are women, which is great. Don't get me wrong; it would be great to see more women, but I think that as this industry continues to grow, I guess the clouded area around that is kind of disappearing, which is nice. It's not gone by any means, but
well, it's a start. It's a start, yeah. And that's all we can ask for, right? Jake, how does the collegiate sphere address diversity and equality? Like, how do we make this feel like a safe space for POC, for women, for members of the LGBTQ plus community?
I think it all starts with the individual collegiate leader, right, on campus, and the purpose behind the space. There's so many, we're in the space business. I can speak to that, right? So there's a lot of spaces, I think early on, hyper-focused on competitive. So those thoughts and inclusion and by nature of having a varsity competitive team in space, it's exclusive by its own nature, right? So I think, first and foremost, helping, especially at the college level, helping the schools see it like they see every other amenity on campus, I think is kind of the main thing, so that the spaces are not purpose-built solely to the needs of, 12, 24, 30 students, but really from a viewpoint of how do we, people from all walks of life, people from every major, everything are going to want to be a part of something. How do we design and build something that's going to address the needs of everybody? So that from the beginning, the expectation is this is an inclusive space that everybody, we do specifically a ton of projects that we really push our clients to see ADA compliance. How can we get special equipment in there? How can we get desking in there? What is the pathway from the outside into the building, into your space? And is that wheelchair compliant? Is there an opportunity for everybody to be involved? So I think first and foremost, it starts with building the space with the viewpoint of an amenity is going to be open to all, but then two, putting leadership in place that also mirrors those values, right? Like I think having a safe space where everybody feels like the culture of the space itself is open to everybody. I think over time we'll start to correct those, and as the more folks get involved, and just from hey, I want to participate in this. I may be a theater major over here, but I want to participate in this, and I want to be a part of the community first. the more folks we can have at to your point, the grassroots, the collegiate level, the finance major at some Big 12 school somewhere right now who feels excluded. If we can pull them into a space, get them a part of the broader community, how does that translate into the future talent pools? Probably pretty significant. I think that's probably a big part of it. I know it's been from somebody who hires folks from the space. It's something that we think about a lot, and sometimes it's not always easy to find the right candidate that we want. So I think the long-term answer is things will continue to get better the more folks that we have involved at the grassroots community level, and as they bubble up and they graduate and then they start to to my earlier point, shoot their shots and trying to get an opportunity in esports. As that pool grows, I think you're going to see a lot more diversity and inclusion going forward. But I think by nature, when it started, right, it was exclusionary to begin with. We're talking about something that to participate in, a lot of times the barrier of entry is a $3,000 computer to start with. So I think the more spaces you have, the more spaces that are open to the community and done from a viewpoint of we want this to be for everybody, I think we'll really, truthfully, that's the place where the biggest impact will be on diversity and inclusion in esports going forward. And this is 5-6 years down the line. But if you can have all your major schools pumping through thousands of kids as part of their community and it's mixed up with everybody, that's only going to have positive results in the future.
Absolutely. It's great to hear that this is definitely in the back of the mind of a lot of people who are involved in those grassroots collegiate projects. And yeah, as you said, it is a long-term commitment. It's a long-term kind of game plan, which it won't change from today to tomorrow. But to see the ball rolling and to see that it's in the back of the mind and is a goal from the people working in this industry, that just gives me a lot of hope. That makes me very happy. Now, Chris, we got a question in our chat from can't read that small, but I do see the question. He wants to know, or she wants to know, or they want to know, what's the best way to prevent burnout since it's so prevalent in esports? I believe also, obviously, from a collegiate side, because you're grinding, because you're trying to get somewhere, that's going to be that's going to be tough with a burnout situation, right? Because you don't really have an opportunity to stop if you haven't reached your goals yet. How does one prevent that?
Yeah, that is a really good question. I'll be the first person to admit that burnout got me. I've been in the esports space for a period of 10 years. I started in collegiate in 2011, and I quit for 2 years in 2018 because at that point, I thought I was just becoming too one-dimensional of a person. Esports was all I knew. It was all I talked about, all I slept. And I think the answer to burnout is you need to have a work-life balance. And I know the most difficult thing with remote work and with digital work is that it's so easy to, put in those 13, 14-hour days, work on Saturdays, Sundays. I do it too. I still do it to this day. But with me and my partner, her and I, we set goals. Am I working out 3 times a week? Am I having quality time with her? And as long as I'm able to meet those regular rhythms of an actual cadence in my life, then I know that my work isn't getting too far into encroaching into my daily operations. I think it's really important to find hobbies out. I may sound weird, but I think it's really important to have hobbies outside of esports too, so that we can be well-rounded people. And who knows, maybe those extra affairs might actually come in and add value to our actual work life and the social ecosystem in which we're in too. So burnout is a really, really prevalent thing. It hits many people. It got me too. And I think the way I solved that problem was by being cognizant and putting in tactical measures of how to control, and identify when my life was being too overtaken by one particular thing, which is my work.
Paige, how do you fight the danger of burnout when you're on the grind?
So I was a college athlete. I played lacrosse at USC, and this is something that I have struggled with my whole life, whether it was training for, a sport in lacrosse or basketball or whatever I played. balancing social life, school, etc. I think it's the same when it comes to either the esports and the gaming industry or just work in general, especially with remote work. Sportfive has offices all over the world, I think about 16. So like if I have to get up on the phone for a 5 a.m. call or at night for a 10 p.m. call, right? Like it's something that you just need to balance. And I think Chris had a really, really great point where it's being cognizant of it and also setting just measures for yourself to actually take time, sit back, work. You have to work to live, not live to work, right? And I think that goes for everyone across any industry, not just this one. So.
What about you, Halina?
Everyone made really good points. I think for me in particular, it was when I moved like my setup out of my room finally and had my office space in a separate quarters from where, my living quarters and where I slept. And because you can easily get into this slump, especially, like everyone said with remote work, where you're doing everything in the same room, you're, eating, sleeping, working all in the same room. And that gets a little bit tough. So having that sort of separation and making yourself stand up, stretch, do what you have to do. I read a lot of like health and wellness blogs, especially, and even like in between games, if you're even just taking a stretch or walking your dog or doing whatever you got to do just to kind of break up the day. I think everyone can maybe get sucked in by sitting in meeting after meeting after meeting and event after event, and taking those little breaks, even if it's 2 minutes, 5 minutes, even if it's those short sporadic moments, finding those moments during the day is definitely going to be your key.
Right. Any last thought from you, Jake? How to work smart, not hard?
I mean, look, they covered it pretty well, but I think, for me, I don't work where I sleep, number one, to Halina's point, and then to Chris's point and Paige's point. I don't have any hobbies that are sedentary or relate back to what I do for work. I think that's a good refresh. We take mental health and physical health pretty serious as a family unit, my wife and I and my kids. So for us, always kind of putting that at the forefront of our weekends or making those other decisions to put, a good focus on that, I think keeps me pretty balanced. And I haven't experienced burnout just yet. I'm not saying that it won't ever happen, but I do kind of stay relentlessly on top of trying to do what I can to reset.
Absolutely. A healthy body is a healthy mind as well. So just be aware of all the aspects going into it. And I understand that the danger is just very real in a space like this, where you have to grind, you have to throw yourself out there, you have to work overtime and to get noticed, to get to those goals and hit those goals. So it's just one of those industries where it's a more prevalent danger of happening. That's it from this round of the panel. Thank you guys so much for joining and sharing your insight. That's been so valuable and so great to have you on.
Thank you
so much.
Thanks, my pleasure.
Thank you so much for having us. It's such a pleasure.
Absolutely. Now, before we head over to the Zoom link for networking, I would once again like to thank our keynote speaker, Mike Ashford from the Esports Awards, and of course, all of our amazing speakers today, Jake Zinn, Halina, Malik, Paige Bonomi, Christian Bishop, Mark Garvey, and Chris Postell, as well as Victoria Horsley and Alex Gonzales. Thank you all so much for sharing all you had to share with us. And we have our next Esports Leadership Summit coming up in September. So be sure to look out for emails or join the Esports Leadership Series on LinkedIn. There is a group which has also been posted in the comments right now. So thanks again for joining, and make sure to drop by for some networking breakout rooms now with the speakers and some other industry professionals and folks from the Esports Awards. This session is open to everyone. And once again, it's very valuable in making connections and just getting some answers, which you otherwise might not. So, I'd highly encourage you to join. The link will be posted in the comments as well right now. Thank you so much and goodbye.